So welcome back to LB1 Mastermind. I'm Dan Mulrooney, your host. This is Marcellus Bowman. We're going to dive deep into strength and conditioning and how it applies to linebacker play in general. I'm really excited to have Marcellus on right now. Marcellus was a killer. He was a killer when he was a player. I played with him at Boston College for 3 years, and obviously he's doing a lot in the sports world right now, strength and conditioning wise, not only in the U.S. but actually in the Canadian Football League as well. So welcome, Marcellus. Just a 2-minute intro about who you are and kind of what brought you here, and then a little bit about Coach McGovern.
Yeah. So, like you said, Coach Boom, Coach Marcellus Bowman, whatever you want to call it. We met, me and you, Boston College, back in the day. After that, I signed with the Broncos out of college, and then came up in the CFL and played up here as a linebacker for 5 years. After that, I went to Auburn University, coached there, UCF, started my own company, supplement company. So, just love everything performance, health, and fitness related. Right now, I'm the head strength coach for the Hamilton Tiger Cats up in the CFL, and just loving the process. And, like you mentioned, being around Coach McGovern, being able to be blessed by some awesome coaches at BC, but McGovern was one of the ones where you can see it was just something different. Like whenever the linebackers would walk out of those meetings, the level of confidence they would walk out with, knowing that they could perform at a high level. And then, I was a safety, me and you were safety in the DB room, but, he was a D coordinator at one point, and being able to play under him really helped me as an athlete, as a football player. So, big time love for McGovern and his family.
No, well said, man. I mean, Coach McGovern was a connector of people, right? And that's as all coaches, we all strive to be these great connectors, and that's something that we all aspire to. But let's dive right into it, man. Our listeners, people watching, they want to learn about strength and conditioning, how it applies to linebacker play. So, honestly, the first question we have for you is, what's the number one thing a linebacker can do, to get a physical edge? I mean, you've been doing this for a while, and have a good space in this, so dive right into that.
So what's surprising? Most people want me to say line or squat or bench press. The first thing I think an athlete has to do, especially at an elite level, collegiate and professional, if that's the goal, is to know what body weight you need to be at to play at a high level. One thing I see extremely often with linebackers and big skill athletes is that they often get too big and then they slow down a little bit. One thing about playing violently is that you need to be able to accelerate extremely fast. If you think about two athletes, one is 220 pounds, the other is 220 pounds, and then the one that's 220 pounds, say athlete B, puts a weight vest on, who's gonna move faster, right? The one without the weight vest, okay? So the point that I'm making is momentum is what caused violence, right? And you have to consider that. So the rule that I have for my athletes and my linebackers up here is don't get as big as possible, get as big as necessary. What's necessary for you to play at an explosive level? For some players, that is 230, 240 pounds. For some linebackers, it's like that. For others, 225. And they play better and more violently at that. So I think that's the number one thing. And then secondly is, from a training perspective, is having variety in your training. One thing that's special about, playing linebackers, you have to be both extremely violent and explosive in small spaces, but you also have to be very comfortable in open spaces, right? So you have to be able to run out to the flat, come to balance, and then explode again, accelerate again. And you can't do that if all you do is cone drills in the offseason, right? You have to react to people. So having as much variety, the word is omnidirectional, being able to run in every direction and being as comfortable running that way as you are running that way, and you'll be a pretty good player.
Yeah, I mean, the two things I took from that was momentum equals violence. Like,
that's right.
What a powerful thing right there. Like, obviously, the in the world of those thumper neck roll inside linebackers, right? I'm coaching the linebackers here at Brown University, and I don't want those type. The modern trends of football need speed on the field, right?
That's right.
Having momentum equaling violence is definitely a nugget I think I just took. So that's awesome. And then in training, just diving deeper into that a little bit, but obviously doing one thing, right? And obviously keeping it fresh, and obviously moving and changing direction, which brings us right to my next point. So the next question is mobility work and how essential recovery is, right, throughout the season. If there's a recovery or mobility routine that you have that keeps people healthy, realistically, linebackers healthy,
Yeah.
How do you
So
dive
the
in?
thing about so the thing about mobility and flexibility, right, is it's different than when you train for strength or you train for speed, right? You can squat 2 times a week and get stronger. You can sprint 2 times a week and get stronger. You can't stretch 2 times a week and get more flexible, right? The thing about mobility, I don't care if you're doing static stretching or if you're doing partner stretching or PNF stretching, it doesn't matter what kind it is. It's the frequency, right? The dose is where you get the benefit out of it, right? So if you're a stiffer guy or if you're an injury prone guy, right? You need to make sure you're stretching. I don't care what type of stretch you're doing, but you need to be able to stretch 4 times a week at least, right? Now, it doesn't have to be a 25-minute, 30-minute yoga session. It could be 15 minutes of targeted mobility work. Whatever's tight, ankles tight, hip flexor, doesn't matter what it is. But it's the frequency that causes the benefit, right? One thing about, being able to move dynamically is you have to have adequate thigh separation, right? You have thigh separation this way, that way, open up your hips that way, right? And if your body senses that you're tight, it's going to turn off your muscles to protect yourself from yourself, right? So if you're tight and that other
Hey,
muscle
say that
fires,
again. Say that again. That was good. Say that.
so what
That was
happens is if you're tight, right, your body's going to turn off or down regulate the amount of strength you can produce to protect you from you. So for example, if your hip flexors are tight, right, your body's going to turn off your glute so that your glute can't fire all the way, right? Because if your glute fires to its max capacity, you're going to tear that hip. So your body says, no, you're too tight. We're turning that off until you get more flexible, right? So even without changing your program, as far as what type of exercises you do, if you get more flexible in those hips, that glute will fire and boom, you explode, right? So mobility, one thing about it is that you don't get a pump. You don't look any different after you stretch. So you can't post it online. Nobody wants to see that. But when it comes to being able to maintain the best ability an athlete can have, which is availability, right, you got to be flexible.
Nah, well said, man. That was powerful. That was awesome. And it kind of goes into kind of change of direction. I think, like you said too, like stretching isn't sexy, right? Like obviously you're not getting the vanity in the gym and posting it on Instagram and looking like
that's right.
But obviously, yeah, I think that's a big piece there. And then obviously the training aspect of it, people are, linebacker play in general is about change of direction, right? To be able to cross over onto shuffle, right? To power shuffle, stay square.
Yeah.
In terms of the drill work you do, and there's a lot of different stuff on this right now, and I'm studying a bunch of this stuff. Change of direction, how important it is to you. How do you feel? What do you guys do up there? What do you believe in? What's your philosophy on stuff you do with that?
Here's the biggest thing that I think will benefit the most amount of players of linebackers is making sure that the overwhelming majority of the change of direction drills that you involve 2 players. That's the biggest thing. 2 people, right? There's 1,000 different cone drills. There's 1,000 different drills you can do with a visual cue, pointing, blowing a whistle, whatever the case is. But when you're out there on the field, you're reacting to humans, right? It's chaotic and it's unpredictable, right? One thing about linebacker play and football play in general is that it's unpredictable. You need to be able to naturally and rhythmically move and react to whatever's going on out there, right? And that comes through exposure and repetition. So, for example, something as simple as, for example, in the off season, I'll have a lane of cones, right? I just said no cones, but a lane of cones, 1 player here, 1 player here, right? One has flags, playing flag football, essentially, right? You got to make it through without getting touched. So obviously the one linebacker who's acting like the running back, he has to be on the offensive and try to get around. The other one has to grab the flag. And then as the offseason goes on, we make it wider and wider and wider and wider. So it's more stressful on the defensive player to try to figure out a way, how do I come to balance, close the gap between me and the ball carrier, but still be able to, explode out of that. So, conceptually, the point that I'm making is the more people you have to react to in your drills, the more naturally translate to what you do on the field. Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And honestly, I've been studying some of that as it relates to, change of direction. But obviously, the 1 versus 0 drills. I love that you brought that up. I don't believe 1 versus 0 drills make you better in terms of skill.
That's right.
And I believe that. So whether it's cones or cone running or jumping over bags, is that really acquiring skill? It's such an interesting topic, right? Like what learned, from the years we've been playing football, it's almost throwing out those drills. As a coach, you kind of have to go out those drills and say, is this actually bettering my player? Right.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a deep, maybe a separate conversation we could have and a different thing. But interesting topic too, and obviously the 1 versus 0, I like that you brought up repetition without repetition. It's like you're ever changing the drills, because that's what linebacker play is. If you're ever, like, the hard part for me is I'm always, when someone memorizes a bag drill in terms of a footwork pattern, does that really mean because he's sweating that I'm doing a good job as a coach? Right.
Yeah.
And that I fight I'm a coach versus the strength coach thing. Right.
Yeah. I'm
also very curious. I'm curious on how to learn better and have the strength coach really adapt to what I want too as a coach.
Yeah. I mean, really just the way I look at it is my goal is to get the position coaches the athlete that they want.
Right. Right.
All right. It's as simple as that. So for me to really be good at my job, right, I have to make sure I deliver, one, healthy athletes. Guys got to be available. And then two, the guys, they can perform schematically whatever's going to be demanded of, right? So that's just one thing. But yeah, when it comes to, drill selection and everything like that, and making sure there's not too much overlap, once again, I communicate with the DBs coach, with the linebackers coach, with the D-line coach on a regular basis to make sure, because here's the worst thing that can happen is I give all the players my favorite drills all off season, right? And then they get in season, they get into training camp, the hardest part of the athletic calendar, and they get a tweak in the groin, Achilles tendonitis, turf toe, tweaked hamstring. And the reason why is not because they didn't work hard all off season, but the work wasn't specific to the demands of the in season. Right? So that last little block of training, the more specific it is to the demands of the first week of training camp, the better, right? One thing that I've changed about my off season, I'm kind of getting off track here, but I'll lock it in, is I used to train my athletes all off season for the in-game demands, right, of the football season. No longer do that. My off season is geared towards getting the athletes to dominate the first 2 weeks of training camp, because nothing's more difficult than that. If an athlete gets out of training camp feeling really good, they're in football shape. They're in game shape. There's no way around it, right? But if they can't survive those first 2 weeks of training camp, the hardest 2 weeks, in the athletic calendar, then they'll come into the season with a limp, and then, that's blood in the water. That's not a good thing, right? So, the point that I'm making is, communication is key between the position coach and the linebacker coach. And the more, we're on the same page, the position coach and the strength coach, more we're on the same page, better.
Yeah, no, and I think you nailed it with the variety of your training. Obviously getting those players to do a lot of different things as they.
That's right.
In the first 2 weeks, obviously, any player that's listening to this, or any coach that is given the demands, know how hard training camp is, and just getting through that healthy and available is obviously. Yeah. Let's transition to nutrition. I remember even back in the day when we were playing, 2007, 2011, nutrition was not the same and not as well known as it is today. But you would always whisper in my ear. You would always tell me in the locker room, man, stop eating this, stop doing this, right? It was always, you had this higher level knowledge to nutrition even back then.
Yeah.
What's one nutrition mistake? If I'm a linebacker listening, if I'm a coach that wants to better our linebackers here tonight, what's if you had a common mistake to limit their performance, what would that be?
Biggest mistake that most linebackers make in the name of gaining muscle and performance, which is absolutely necessary, right? You got to get big and strong, is the quality of the food, eating too many fried and sugary foods, right? The obvious stuff, the junk foods. But here's why I want to dive into that a little bit. When it comes to the fried foods, right? The biggest thing that fried foods do to an athlete is they slow down the recovery from day 1 to day 2. Here's the thing about training, for example. The benefit of training isn't in the squat or in the exercise selection or the sets and the reps. The benefit of training is in the recovery from that. If you don't recover from training, there is no benefit, right? Every time you eat fried foods, you take away your ability to recover, right? It's almost like you're taxing your gains, right? You did 10 reps, but you're only taking home 6 because you're constantly eating trash food, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is sugary foods, right? So for example, and this is no correlation, but I'm just using it as a illustration. This past NBA season, right? There was 8 or so season-ending Achilles tears, right? And it was all the hoopla and strength and conditioning world, and everybody had an opinion about, why. Here's one thing that sugar does to a tendon. It makes it brittle. It makes it brittle and easier to break, easier to snap. The process is called glycation. We don't got to get into the science. The point that I'm making is you have to be strong, you have to be elastic, you have to be available, you have to be supple. All these things are necessary for you to play at a high level. If you're eating fried foods and you're not recovering, or if you have a sweet tooth that's going to negatively impact your performance or your ability to stay healthy, that's going to be a problem. So, the quality of the food is a big deal. You don't have to be perfect. That's a beautiful thing about performance improvement. Perfection is never required, but consistency is. And if you want to be a guy, you want to separate yourself from being that 1%, you got to do 1%er things.
Yeah, well said. I mean, obviously, right, I think part of it's, right, having an elite mindset, right? Like,
yeah,
I think the mindset back then was, very championship level. And I think some people have that mindset of it's almost obsession's better than discipline. You know what I mean? Like you have
Amen.
that like
Amen.
obsession to yourself where you tell Marcellus he can't do something, you're going to figure out how to do it. Like, and I think that's a big piece of it, right? And that makes the greats, the Kobe Bryants, all these great people. That's a big piece of it. But if those little reminders when you're selecting foods, and obviously we knew nothing, other than the people that like you and the people that helped us a little bit, but we knew nothing as it related to nutrition. I think that's an X factor, honestly.
Yeah,
like you said, recovery is a huge piece, whether it's eat, sleep. I saw your email. Your email is pretty amazing there. Eat, sleep. I don't want to give it away.
Eat, sleep, peak. Yeah, eat, sleep, peak. Yep.
You can plug
right.
that later. But well said in nutrition. I think we'll take a lot from that as a linebacker community. Next piece, just advice you give to take preparation to the next level. I know you touched on a lot, but is there anything different that we've missed just in terms of, I'm a linebacker. I'm a really good linebacker. I'm doing everything I can to be the best I can be. I'm a player or I'm a coach. I'm trying to take my guys to the next level, NFL level, CFL level, professional level.
Yeah.
What is some advice you can give those coaches or those players?
I think one of the biggest things you can do is self-assess, honestly and aggressively and without emotion. Like just self-assess as an athlete, and then put that to the side, and then go as a player that you trust, a coach that you trust, somebody on the other side of the ball, right? And tell them to assess you don't care about your feelings or how you feel, how bad, like actually be more.
That's hard to be real.
100%, but like these are the pieces of information because we all have blinders on, right? We all can only see so much and sense so much. And we need the other people's opinions and perspectives to help round out what's required of us. So I think self-assessment is a big deal. The other thing is realizing what hard work is. We see hard work on t-shirts and on the walls and everything like this, but this is the point that I make to the athletes on a regular basis, is that hard work isn't just blood, sweat, and tears, right? Going in the gym, lifting as much weight as possible, going on the field, playing as hard as possible. Hard work means just doing hard things. For some people, it's hard for them to make an apple over an apple pie decision at 9 p.m. at night. That's hard for them. For some people, it's hard for them to stop doom scrolling and go to sleep at 10 o'clock. For others, it's really, really hard for them to do that night after night after night in season, right? That's hard work too. And the beautiful thing about that is once you learn that, and once you self-assess and see where your gap is, and you aggressively attack that, one, that's hard work, but two, the return on investment is crazy because now you're targeted. You're not just working hard. The one mistake that I made as an athlete is that I kept hammering the thing that I was already good at. I was already strong, but I kept hitting that because, that's just all I knew, right? In other words, I was hitting the bullseye on the wrong target, right? Even if it was a perfect shot, I still lost, right? I need to be able to know what I need to hit when I'm targeted about my intentions and what I need to do and the work that I put in. The return on investment is so much higher, right? So I think that's a really big deal.
No, that was really well said. That was beautiful. Mm-hmm. One thing you said that just resonated with me, it's like, the discipline, right? Like the discipline. Yeah. It sounded like whenever we heard discipline back then with our strength coach or whatever, it seems so negative, like discipline. Like it seemed almost like a punishment, right? But how you're explaining it, there's so much reward.
Yeah. And it's
it's interesting, like it's changing our mindset a little bit to understand that discipline is there. it's for us. It's helping us. It's not like you have to go to bed at 9. You have to run
Yeah.
miles a day. You
Yeah.
have to. It's you're explaining it as a huge benefit.
You know what discipline is? Discipline is being selfish. Because every time you're disciplined, you're doing the best thing for yourself.
Yep.
That's what the result of being disciplined only benefits you. So, like, yes, we got to be about the team, right? You can't do this thing by yourself. But there is a selfish component of performance. Yep. That's how you be selfish. By what you eat, the quality of your sleep, the maintenance you do on your body, all the things that will allow you to be the best version of yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, when you make a tackle, they call your name. If you make it to the pros, when you walk across the stage, they call your name. When you get that check and deposit, it go into your account, right? So you got to really take, or if you have a bad game, take responsibility for that. Because if you take responsibility, that means that it's within your power to fix it, right? So, I think hard work, discipline, and selfishness that paradigm needs to shift. And if applied correctly, I think it'd be really can be really beneficial.
Yeah, no, well said, man. You're crushing it right now. This is awesome nuggets for everyone listening. I hope everyone's enjoying this. So we're wrapping up here. I don't want to take too much of your time. Everyone's busy. But want to talk to you a little bit just as we end out. Want to talk two things. Really just one thing about you could leave one message. I'm going to say this to every speaker, almost every speaker. You can leave one message on a whiteboard. And every linebacker sees it in the country. Every linebacker gets to hear what you have to say, whether it's one sentence, one word, whatever it may be. What would that sentence, what would that paraphrase say?
Be a 1%er.
Love it.
Being the 1%. Simple as that. It's easy to be in the 99%. The road to being average is the directions are very clear. Everybody can get there. The road to being a 1%er, not so clear, a lot more difficult, right? And until you're in the 1%, there's work to be done. And the beautiful thing about it, once you do get in the 1%, it's hard to stay there. So you got to keep working to maintain that position. So be a 1%er. If you're anything less than that, keep working.
Well, listen, man, I mean, this was awesome. I mean, obviously the night is obviously honoring Coach McGovern, keeping his legacy in the football world alive and strong. Obviously means a lot to us being teammates, obviously, and then obviously playing for Coach Govs. What a great dude. Obviously, what a great person. And on top of it, even better coach. I hope everyone can take these lessons that we learned tonight and from this conversation and apply them and keep rising the standard like LB1's doing tonight. All right, this whole night is really geared towards the players and the coaches that are listening to get us better at what we're trying to do and really think differently. That's why you're on this call. A lot of people on this call are coaches or players or former players or coaches. And I brought you on exclusively to talk the other side, right? To talk the conditioning world where some coaches have resistance, right? Obviously the players don't, but some coaches have resistance towards it. And I believe as coaches, we have to be very curious to learn the other side to get the most out of our guys. And if we're not being curious, we're doing a disservice to our players. So I really appreciate those. I mean, obviously you're a heck of a ball player. Obviously you were a killer. And now you're doing some great things. I know the sky's the limit for you, Marcellus. I'm so proud of you. I'm excited to work with you again. I'm going to share this message. This thing's going to be an awesome hit. And, any last words for me? I appreciate you coming on.